Hello, everyone. This is Kevin T. Rodriguez, film critic of iCritic.net, and we're going to be doing a different type of podcast for iCritic Live. We're calling this iCritic Live Random Thoughts. And this is going to be, we're not going to be doing it live per se, but we are going to be premiering these podcasts so that you can comment along with the liveness of it, if you will. But these are thoughts that, I have some random thoughts about things and I kind of want to talk about them. But, I've been watching Twin Peaks. I finally caught on to Twin Peaks after how many years and it being called one of the greatest shows of all time. And my goodness, they are not lying. And I kind of got enamored with the FBI agent who is constantly recording notes and thoughts into his tape recorder to apparently send out to someone who takes this information and gets him what he needs. Sometimes it seems like he's talking to no one in particular but himself. But I'm kind of like, you know what, maybe I could do that for some of these topics because, there are some topics that I want to say something about. I have thoughts about them. But do I necessarily want to set up the live camera work and do a live show? Or do I want to sit in front of the camera and edit an actual video? Maybe this is a topic I want to say something about, but I don't want to put a lot of effort into making it look good. I just want to share my thoughts, if you will. So that's what this new series is going to be about. Topics that I want to definitely talk about, but I don't want to put a lot of effort into making videos. And maybe this is even how we'll do the news going forward, because in the new year, I also want to make more long-form videos. You might have noticed part 1 of the Academy Award shorts that I've put up. That's going to be like a feature-length documentary thing when it's all done. I want to get back on my animated Oscars feature. I want to do something with the Criterion channel. And so maybe news videos, for the most part, should turn into this audio-only thing. So that's basically what this is going to be. And if you think this whole little podcast is going to be about the future of the channel and stuff like that, we might make an episode about that. But for the time being, I was kind of thinking about Disney Plus and Hulu merging. Now, I want to start by saying, as a shareholder of companies like Disney and Apple and Netflix and things like that, that from a business perspective, this makes sense. Disney, for many reasons, wants to be a big player in the streaming wars. While I do believe the bubble has burst on streaming being the sole delivery method, and honestly, Netflix is going to suffer at some point if they don't start embracing theatrical and physical media and traditional means of getting money. They still have so many subscribers that they don't have to worry about that right now. But I think the bubble of it being the sole delivery method has burst. But it is not exactly a bad thing to have a subscription service as a deliverer of vintage content. Now, I read recently that Peacock, NBC's little foray into streaming wars, has 30 million paid subscribers. Now, here's the thing. They all have different price tiers, but they start at $5.99. So I'm like, okay, well, let's assume they're all $5.99, even though some are obviously more. And you multiply that by 30 million subscribers. That is roughly $179,700,000 a month. Basically $180 million a month of revenue that's coming in. It's passive income. And look, if you're just putting vintage content on Peacock, you're not really investing in the originals. That's pretty good. If Peacock did not produce one show exclusively for that service and it was just gravy, that's a lot of gravy. You do that for the whole year and you're talking about $2.15 billion a year in passive income. Now that is the kind of money on why companies were spending $200-300 million on shows to get you to subscribe to their network. But then, of course, the fallacy of that was that you couldn't afford to keep doing that for 10 years. Costs of TV shows only go up, and so shows get canceled. So, there's been a realignment. But $2.1 billion a year in passive income. That is nothing to sneeze at. And Disney Plus has considerably more subscribers than Peacock. In fact, I think they are close to the 100 million paid subscribers. And of course, merging things like Hulu and ESPN would just make it more palpable. So, from a business perspective, I understand why merging Hulu and merging ESPN, I mean, they haven't done it yet, but I suspect that they are going to eventually fold the ESPN app into Disney Plus. And then, those Disney Plus after it's like Disney Plus, Hulu Plus, ESPN Plus, whatever, that would become a true thing. But before I even get to that point, when we knew this was coming, and so when Disney bought out Hulu, I think Hulu will still be like a production company. They were making their own shows and things like that, so that will probably continue to be a thing. But I suspect by the end of 2025, Hulu, the standalone app, will be obsolete. I think it will be shuttered. The end of an era will be upon us, and it'll all be on Disney Plus. Now, it's in beta mode, and it's been fun to kind of see what you now can get on Disney Plus. Like, The Bear is like a new hit show from FX, and I was finally convinced to watch it, and because I don't have cable network, and honestly, I have never had cable TV, personally. I mean, even though I grew up with cable being a thing, just never had it. So I'm checking out The Bear on Disney Plus, and I get a kick out of that. And I've been making like little short YouTube videos where it's like, you discover that Sailor Moon, if you have the Disney Plus Hulu bundle, Sailor Moon pops up when you search in Disney, and it's kind of like, oh, does that make Sailor Moon a Disney princess now? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of funny to think about that. And then, of course, Bob Iger was famously asked once, will Family Guy ever be on Hulu? And instead of being diplomatic, he just, leaned into the microphone and said, no. Well, he's apparently a liar now. That did not age well, because now when you type in Family Guy, as well as the much better but less known Seth MacFarlane creation American Dad, these are now on Disney Plus, and you almost get like a little bit of a kick out of seeing the Disney Plus logo. But then, of course, you have other things like Die Hard and Alien that are now on Disney Plus. Is that why the Alien preschool book is being made, because it's now on Disney Plus and Disney feels okay to do that? I don't know. I mean, it's still a little weird. But then, of course, you start going more and more into it. You start seeing like the really hard R stuff. And then I think something broke for me a little when I saw that Lars von Trier's Nymphomaniac Parts 1 and 2 were on Disney Plus. Now, for those of you who do not know who Lars von Trier is, he is considered one of the greatest living directors today. Personally, I think most of his stuff is garbage. I don't like most Lars von Trier films. In fact, he actually strikes me as someone who is very opinionated about the world and how things are supposed to be, but he's such a hypocrite in many ways, in many of his complaints, like, he blames all of the world's problems on America, but he won't go to America because he's afraid to. Like, so he doesn't really have any experience with America. And that movie Dogsville, with Nicole Kidman, I believe it's what it's called, where it's supposedly like, an anti-outcast movie, and it's supposed to be condemning, like, mistreating outsiders and abusing them and things. But then as his characters continue to, for lack of a better term, SA, you'll know what that means if you've been on YouTube for a while, the main character, it almost seems like the director, despite claiming that he is against this sort of thing, seems to be reveling in a little bit of it himself, especially since this movie also has these really cheap sets where it's like they're basically like a few chairs on like a stage play, and like towns are drawn on the ground, and for some reason this thing goes on for more than 3 hours. I don't like Lars von Trier. In Nymphomaniac, he admitted, like, he made this movie because after he had made whatever his previous film was, and of course it was acclaimed and I thought it was terrible, he was told to basically be careful, you have to start growing up as a filmmaker because you don't want to become that dirty old man who just makes movies with young naked girls, and he decided that because someone told him he shouldn't make a movie like that, he was going to make a movie like that. He didn't make one movie, he made 2 movies where this young girl, and I'm saying, you normally wouldn't say nymphomaniac because that's not a word that YouTube would allow, but since this, is the title of the movie, I don't know what to say. But if you know what a nymphomaniac is, you know what a nymphomaniac is. So the fact that there is a movie called Nymphomaniac, Part 1 and 2, I guess there was no 3, he didn't want to make it a trilogy, is on Disney Plus, that's already concerning. Now, these movies are not rated, but they're not rated because he never bothered to submit them to the MPAA, now the MPA, because he knew that if he submitted these movies, they would receive NC-17 ratings. And the idea that you have NC-17 rated movies on Disney Plus did not really sit well with me. And then you start seeing movies like the Die Hard trilogy on Disney Plus. Look, I love Die Hard. And yes, I'm even one of those people who will proudly proclaim that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And in fact, just for kicks and giggles, I saw that they had made a storybook adaptation of Die Hard that is, still not kid appropriate, but less adult oriented, if you will. And so I got it because it was like, a cute little thing. But what's Die Hard doing on Disney Plus? I remember that Walt Disney, and look, I'm not going to be one of these Disney purists. I know the man's been dead for a long time. I know the company has to expand, it has to change, it has to evolve. But I also agree in core principles. Disney, for years, has been one of those companies where it's like, this is a safe haven for parents. Walt Disney himself made movies for kids and the kids in the adults. And that didn't even limit him as much as you would think it would, because not only was Mary Poppins multiple Academy Award nominated film, including Best Picture, but he was one of the first men to produce nature documentaries. Now, some people would say kids don't watch nature documentaries, but at the time, it was thought of oh, this is family entertainment. And he kind of helped invent a new genre, if you will. And so, because kids love seeing animals and their lives, and the kid in us loves seeing how animals live as well. Disney just did things like this. And it was even said that when he would see some, really adult films at the Oscars, he privately would wish to Roy Disney that he could make those kind of movies. But he knew that the Disney name meant something. It meant that families could enjoy these movies. And by the way, that's why the purchase of Pixar, the purchase of Marvel, and the purchase of Star Wars don't strike me as egregious purchases by the Disney company, because it's these were ultimately family brands. Now, I would argue most kids shouldn't be watching PG-13 Marvel movies, but, I have to admit that if my parents let me watch these types of movies when I was 8 years old, I would absolutely love them. Now, when Walt Disney passed, that Ron Miller, his stepson and CEO for a brief amount of time, decided that, well, you know what? Disney really needs to make adult films for these types of things. Well, for the company, because, we want to make adult films, so we can't have them associated with the Disney brand. We just can't. And it made sense. So that's why he founded Touchstone. And then when Michael Eisner and Frank Wells and Jeffrey Katzenberg came on board, Touchstone became this big strategic label for Disney, because they could make things like Three Men and a Baby, and some of those Bette Midler movies like Stella, and Boys in the Band, for a Dick Tracy, for mid-budget prices, and they would typically go on to make $75 to $80 million. They'd spend $20 million on them, and then they'd make 80 million. Like, that's actually not a bad strategy. You'd think more studios would try to like say, hey, let's put out a $10 million movie, see if we can make $50 million. But, no, everyone wants to join the $1 billion club. And they did this because it's like, look, we want to be able to, sell these movies we sold. That's also why when they would make an animated film or partially animated film, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it was just felt like it was a little too edgy for families, they would put it under the Touchstone Pictures banner so that, it's basically the parents are being warned this is an adult product. And there was always that separation of church and state. And when Disney really wanted to make adult movies like Kids and Clerks and things, well, they do it through Miramax. Well, I mean, technically Miramax made them and Disney purchased Miramax, and then their mommy and daddy had a divorce, if you will. But Disney has always been smart about, like, you do not put adult content with the Disney brand. Now, Disney has come under fire by a lot of conservative groups, and I'm not saying I agree with all of these points, by the way. I'm not even saying I agree with most of these points, that Disney has become too woke, and they're betraying what their identity is. And by the way, I do not believe that putting a black female superhero makes you a woke company. I don't believe that that's betraying values. I don't believe that making the Little Mermaid black, that is not a woke thing. No. There's nothing wrong with being black. And that little lesbian kiss in Lightyear, didn't bother me. I don't think that's betraying core family values either. There are families that have lesbian parents out there. And you know what? There's a lot of lesbian and gay parents that are perfectly acceptable parents. There's a lot of them that are not, but you know what? There's a lot of unacceptable straight parents as well. So no, these are not the things that I'm talking about. But I remember when they made Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. And I remember it got a PG-13 rating, and that was like shocking to me. Like, Disney actually made something that's PG-13. Now, of course, Disney had been making PG-13 and R-rated movies for a year, but they never put their name on it. And it kind of felt like a line had been crossed. And now you see a lot of Disney movies that have a PG-13 rating on them. That would usually never happen in the past because it's like PG-13 is a strong warning to parents that this is probably not suitable for kids. And it seemed like once we started allowing Disney to make quote-unquote family films that are rated PG-13, it's like, so this is like a fine line, or not even a fine line. It's like almost blurred the lines. In fact, they've probably mopped the line and you can't even see anymore. Like, are you saying that, G, PG, and PG-13 are all kid stuff, and then you hit the R, and now all of a sudden, no kids can see anything? Like, we got to that point? I don't know. I have young nieces and nephews, so I am always thinking about, how what I show them, because I don't want innocence to be destroyed too soon. But Disney's name is now on it, and they broke down that wall, and then their animated films, which used to all be G, with very rare exceptions like The Black Cauldron and The Nightmare Before Christmas, then became PGs. In fact, now all the Disney animated films are PG, even though I don't really know why. I don't know why Tangled's PG. I don't know why Frozen is PG. I can kind of understand Big Hero 6 to a certain extent, but but another line had been broken to, it's like now there's not even any G-rated stuff. Well, Disney Plus, when it came out, even with like the PG-13 thing and everything like that, Disney still made Disney Plus and said, hey, we still understand that we are the family streaming service. We're not going to put things on Disney Plus that would really offend parents. Parents should feel safe on Disney Plus, although they also still have the kids' profile, just to be on the safe side, because you can't completely let kids browse Disney Plus. But Disney took it so seriously that they even would censor some of their movies, which I strongly disagree with, by the way. They what were the things that they did? Well, with a documentary called Free Solo, which was rated PG-13, by the way, they did bleep a couple uses of the F word, like, they silenced it. I don't think Free Solo is a movie that kids are going to be watching anyway, but because it was on Disney Plus, they had certain standards, this was deemed inappropriate and they censored it. They also censored the PG-rated splash, and this was a travesty, of course. Daryl Hannah's butt was censored in a couple shots. The movie's rated PG, but it's not a kid's movie. It's clearly an adult movie, but because kids might stumble upon it, they see, Woody right there, front and center. Guess what? Like, they have to make extra sure. So Disney was aware that Disney Plus was still primarily a family network. It's like, when you go to Cartoon Network, you understand that should be a family network, but then at night they have the Adult Swim and it rebrands. Like, okay, this is the adult content. This is the adult cartoons. We hope little Billy is not awake at 1 a.m. watching, well, it's not Family Guy anymore. Let's say Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I know the new Toonami is more adult-oriented, but, Anyway, so, brandings have a purpose. And here's the ultimate thing. While it has been fun to see Family Guy on Disney Plus, it's definitely cute to see Sailor Moon on Disney Plus, because I just love the idea that Sailor Moon is a Disney princess. You can now see Naruto and Bleach. Like, all of a sudden Disney Plus has a lot of anime. Like, the whole debate I had for years as a kid on message boards, like, who makes the better cartoons, Disney or anime? I was like, of course, the one in the middle who's they both make great cartoons. Well, now they're both in one place. Oh man, I wish I could go back to my 12-year-old self on those message boards and say, hey, guess what? You're gonna win this argument in the long run. That would be great. But I am wondering now, like, has a sacred trust been broken? Has Disney violated who they are to the core by putting R-rated stuff on Disney Plus? You have to keep in mind that when you search for these things, like, there's a tab. Excuse me, folks. I've been recovering from a cold. Yes, there's a tab for Hulu. There is. But when you search for things and stuff from Hulu comes up, like The Handmaid's Tale, which, really think about it, The Handmaid's Tale on Disney Plus. That seems wrong. When you pull up The Handmaid's Tale, it's not like it says Hulu. Disney Plus is still front and center on that app. I mean, yeah, you'll see, like, in the description, this is a Hulu original, but in the top left corner, it still says Disney Plus. On the search bar, it still says Disney Plus. Like, does Disney even have an identity anymore once you go to Disney Plus to watch The Bear, which is definitely an R-rated show? It is not something that Disney should have on their service. I even personally wondered, even though the show seems so benign, I remember, because I've been alive since The Simpsons premiered, and to hear that that was going to be one of the selling points of Disney Plus, it's like, my goodness, this used to be a show that parents would hate it if their kids watched it. But now things have gotten so bad that The Simpsons actually seems pretty tame, all things considering. Sorry, folks. And, well, it's now on Disney Plus. It's an anchor point for Disney Plus. I just wonder, like, have we gotten to a point where this is too far? Have we gotten to a point where Disney is completely lost? Like, what Disney stands for is gone. And here's the thing. I'm not saying that we turn back the hands of time. I'm not saying, like, hey, let's sell this and this and this and let's put Disney back to where it was like 1994. You can't do that. It's an expanding company, and in fact, Walt Disney himself, he never sat on his laurels. The only reason we have, the animated feature is because he felt he had conquered shorts. What's the next mountain to climb? Okay, he accomplished animation. What's the next mountain to climb on? Live action films. Okay, what's next? Documentary. What's next? Television. What's next? Theme parks. You get the idea. So Disney does need to grow. I don't think turning back the hands of time would make Disney a better company altogether. But I wonder if there is wisdom in doing things this way, because once you officially make it known that Disney Plus is the home of adult only content, then it's not Disney anymore. I'm even wondering if maybe the reverse should not be happening. Maybe Hulu should be the main hub and Disney should be a tab on Hulu. That way it's okay, you can find all your Disney stuff on Hulu, but when you create the kid's profile is Disney Plus. I kind of wonder if that would not be a better way to be doing this. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Again, this is a new type of podcast thing that we're doing, and hopefully I won't be recovering from a cold when I do the next one. So, I don't know. It's a weird thing, although I do like having more choices. And, Disney's the only one that has this problem, because Max, that has Cartoon Network, Ghibli, Turner Classic Movies, Adult Swim. They can have anything they want and nobody raises an eyebrow. Although even Max had an issue when it was HBO Max. I know that people never understood, well, why would you drop the HBO name from HBO Max? But the thing is, HBO, again, it had an identity as adults only TV shows for the most part. And there were a lot of families who didn't realize Looney Tunes were on HBO Max. They didn't realize that DC was on HBO Max. They thought that HBO Max was all Game of Thrones and things like that. So once they rebranded to Max, they acquired a lot more family audiences, because they realized, Max is where you go to watch Cartoon Network, and Max is where you go to watch Sesame Street. It has the adult stuff there, but it also has the family stuff there. But Disney is just the opposite. I mean, it's a much bigger culture shock when it's this is Disney, and then you're going to go to Disney and there's a Handmaid's Tale. It's whoa, what? Can I trust Disney Plus? So that's kind of my thing with the Disney Plus Hulu merger, if you will. And we're coming up on almost 30 minutes, and one of the things that I want to try to do with this series, I want to try to kind of keep it below 30 minutes if I can. I can only talk so much. I think you guys can only listen to me for so long. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I will mention one more thing about Disney Plus, though. I mean, just because I will say that the one thing Disney has been good about is the parental controls. Because unlike other sites, Disney Plus, when you sign up for it, it automatically has R-rated content and above locked. So you see these trailers for Echo, and they're kind of telling you, remember to change your parental settings to allow TVMA content. Because if you don't do that, you can't see Echo on Disney Plus. So that's the one safeguard that Disney has that maybe other streaming services could learn a thing or two from. How they all say well, we have parental controls, parents don't look at them. And it's well, they never have a reason to. But if you lock the R-rated stuff from the get-go, then parents have a reason to go to the parental locks and play with them and things like that. So that's the one thing Disney Plus does good. But otherwise, I think they've opened Pandora's box, and I wonder if this might not be a bridge too far in the long run. So anyway, I would love to know what you think about this. Do you think this is a good direction for Disney to go? If you are a parent, are you concerned about this? I'd love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. And I hope to see you more with these quick little thoughts of mine. Take care.